Howdy, peeps. Today, we're going to talk about how to deal with the frustration that many of us feel in our local geographic stakes when stake leaders refuse to act in support of singles. Join the Journey Radio starts right now.
Welcome to the infusion of positive energy into the lives of single Latter-day Saints everywhere. This is Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back, peeps, to another wonderful, splendiferous, joyous episode of Join the Journey Radio. I am Lance, your host for Join the Journey Radio, and this is episode number 391, Frustration with Local Leaders. Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. So if you're viewing the program during the live stream today, please join the chat. Tell us where you're from. If you're viewing the program at a later time, please leave a comment down below. Let us know where you're from, because that will help us with the algorithms. All right, peeps. Today, I want to revisit something that came up last weekend during the DC Single Adult Conference. And there was an initial meeting for a new group that will be planning regional activities for the singles living in the northeastern U.S. So, given my activity here with Join the Journey Radio and my long-held interest in working to improve the lives of Latter-day Saint singles, I made sure to be in that meeting. Now, despite an initial admonishment to the group that complaints were forbidden from the agenda, the frustration that many felt with their local leaders was so great that some of the room could not help themselves. Now, I completely understand this. They needed a release valve, and here was a chance to let off some steam. So, I totally understand where they're coming from. At the same time, I had a perspective on that issue that I wanted to share. In fact, I felt prompted to share because I felt it would alleviate at least some of the frustration that was being felt and conveyed in the room. But I kept my mouth shut because I had opined earlier about an aspect of the conference that I found disagreeable. And the resulting pile-on against me in response made me feel very small and insignificant. I didn't really like that feeling, and I didn't want to repeat it. So during the meeting, I decided not to say anything. Because I thought about my silence during that meeting after the fact, how I had the opportunity to relieve the pain that many singles were evidently feeling, and I did nothing to help them. That left me feeling ashamed, which then led to regret, and that evolved into a desire to repent. And so, in the desire to practice daily repentance as a lifestyle, I decided to talk with you today about how to deal with the frustration that many Latter-day Saint singles feel when their local stake leaders seem to be non-responsive to the needs of the singles within their stake. I myself have felt this frustration and the pain that it engenders. For the past 30 years, I have lived in different parts of the United States, both in areas where the local LDS population was almost everyone, and where the local LDS population was almost no one. Accordingly, I have been a member of many different wards and stakes, and every one of them is different. Some are better than others, but the general consensus from what I have seen among stake leaders is that they provide little of any, if anything, for the singles in their stake. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking here about the single adults and not the YSA bunnies that seem to be receiving a whole lot more attention from the church. Now, in addition to experiencing LDS singles life in various wards and stakes across the country, I've also served in different leadership callings. So the perspective that I have to share with you today comes from someone who has sat in many bishopric meetings, ward council meetings, stake presidency meetings, and stake high council meetings. I have seen the issues that compete with the needs of singles for space on the meeting agenda. And while I do not feel it appropriate to share all the details for, what those competing agenda items were, I will tell you that some of those items were legitimately more important for the people in the meeting to discuss. It's just some things that they're discussing are just more important by their nature. Now, I can also tell you that generally the men who serve in stake presidencies are very good men who have their imperfections, but who are not imperfect in their desire to serve the Lord when called. They do their best to understand His will and to serve under His direction. They're also very much human beings and exhibit the same tendencies that you and I exhibit as human beings. Now, many of these men married when they were young and started their family in their 20s. As such, they do not really understand the experience that we single adults are having because they haven't lived it themselves. So, when they get pulled at from several different directions at the same time, from their family, their full time jobs, their personal life, and their calling, which, I'll add this, for stake presidency members, essentially is another full time job on top of the one they already have. So, with all that on their plate, it's very easy for them to let something that they don't completely understand just fall off the edge. That tendency is so strong that many people, and again, here I'm talking about normal human behavior, many people give rationales for leaving it off their plate, right? So not only do they just are okay with letting it fall off the plate, they don't want it put back on because they've got so much there already. It's like we don't want to take anything more, right? That's normal human behavior. A common rationale that I've heard to deflect having more things to do on their plate um, is that the needs of single adults are, so widely varied that there's no one size fits all solution. As if, the only reason why we would help anyone is if we can do something that helps everyone. But if we can't do something that helps everyone, therefore we're not going to do anything. I'm sorry, not following that logic. Now, despite the superficial truth of that reasoning, I mean, the single adults really are a group with great diversity and a wide array of needs. At the same time, I feel most who offer it are just attempting to excuse their own inaction. And I know why they do it. I just explained it, but I still don't agree with it. Now, we singles on the receiving end of such rationales can feel very frustrated. We want our singles groups to grow. We want to be with other Latter-day Saint singles so we can satisfy our need to connect with other Latter-day Saint singles. And these apparently non-responsive leaders are essentially telling us that they're not going to help us meet our needs. They're leaving us on our own. And that can be very frustrating. And that frustration, if you keep focusing on it, can grow and grow until finally you know, I'm not talking about the primary song either. I looked out the window and what did I see? Popcorn popping on the apricot tree. That's not the pop I'm talking about. I'm talking about a different kind of pop with your head. I mean, there simply won't be enough tape. Duct tape. You duct tape, try to hold yourself together. There won't be enough, right, to hold yourself together. You're going to blow. Now, many of us have spent so much time in that space of frustration, we can't see anything hopeful in the future. But, as we've said many times on this program, your focus becomes your reality. When you focus on frustration, what do you think your reality becomes? It's a reality that's filled with obstacles and disappointment. How then do you shift your focus so that you can deal with that frustration in a way that leads to joy in your life and the lives of the other singles in your stake? Well, the first step is to stop focusing on what others are not doing and start focusing on what you yourself can do. Agency is the second most underappreciated gift of God after the atonement. And when you think about it, the way many singles are acting is pretty ridiculous. I mean, think about this. Many singles are waiting for their stake leaders to take some action before they do anything. Like, no matter how often they alert their leaders to what their preferred outcomes look like, they get frustrated that their leaders refuse to give them the permission they think they need to live their life. Think about this. They're waiting for some other person to give them permission before they start living their life. That's pretty crazy to me. Now, the fix for that, of course, is easy to identify. Stop waiting for anyone to give you permission before you start living your life. I understand that the culture inside the church is largely one of, top-down directives. I mean, it is a kingdom after all. But the General Handbook of Instructions does not prohibit any LDS single from getting together with other LDS singles and forming their own group that provides for its own needs. If anything, the many decades in which leaders have taught the principle of self-reliance could be leveraged in support of such an action. So I'm recommending that as a first step, stop waiting for someone to give you permission before you start living your life, and start living your life. If your leaders won't, give you the go ahead to organize something officially, then organize something unofficially. People have needs, and they shouldn't have to wait through some bureaucratic process before they get met. We should act to meet their needs, to reach out after the one. And, if our leaders, for whatever reason, don't have the vision today, that's not going to stop me from reaching out my hand and helping somebody else today. Now, of course, singles should not conspire to do anything which the handbook clearly prohibits, right? Even though you're an unofficial group, don't cross the bounds of what the handbook says. It's like, don't go over there, but don't go over there, right? I mean, you want to try to keep this as legit as you can. And yes, what we do as singles would be better if we had local leaders approve it, if they would just show their support, right? I mean, think about this. It's like it's not a huge ask. It's like we present them with a program, say this is what we want to do. They look over it and they give it the rubber stamp. I mean, if they see any red flags, by all means, let's talk about that and resolve whatever concerns are had. But if there are no red flags, nothing to be concerned about it, everything's okay. Put your rubber stamp on it. Let us get about our business. I mean, it's not a huge ask, and yet some leaders are just. I understand being super busy, but I don't see how that's asking a lot of you. Still, if you're in that situation, I'm saying my recommendation, the first step is don't wait for them to give you permission before you start acting, right? We all either act or we're acted upon, and it's our choice which we are. And I'm saying there's a lot more joy to add in your life if you choose to act, right? I mean, it may be that you need to do your own thing for a while before you can get that rubber stamp approval. I mean, these are, after all, very busy men, even though I don't think a rubber stamp's all that all that intrusive, but what do I know? So if you approach them with a history, of successful singles group, along with a pitch of, we just want to keep doing this with your blessing going forward. All we need is your rubber stamp. I mean, okay, you got the history, so you've got evidence that says you're doing something good. It can be easier to get that approval, and maybe that's what you need to do initially. Develop a track record as an unofficial singles group, and then use that to leverage your way to get approval for becoming an official singles group. So that's the first step. Just don't wait. Start acting today. Second, I recommend you start with the singles who are already active and bring them together to counsel with each other regarding how you should proceed with your own singles group. Everything in the church is conducted by counsel. So this is the approach you should use to form your own singles group and decide how to move forward with it. I have an awesome quote here from then Elder Russell M. Ballard. Let's see if I can pull that up here. Let's try this. Okay, so I'd kind of let you read that. But one thing I hate about this new platform I have is that, when I'm showing stuff on the screen like that, I, it doesn't always take my voice. So I don't know if it's, and I have nothing here on this dashboard to show me if it's actually recording my voice along with the image that I'm showing you, or if the sound's not coming through. The only way I know is after the fact when I go to do the post production work with the video editing, and by then it's too late. Anywho, that was a great quote. Excuse me. A quick quote from then Elder Russell M. Ballard. There is no problem in the family ward or stake that cannot be solved if we look for solutions in the Lord's way by counseling, really counseling with one another. Now think about that for a moment. Certainly the problems that we have with respect to the unmet needs of singles are within the boundaries of the stake. I'd call that a stake problem. And as Elder Ballard promised, there is no problem in the stake that cannot be solved if we will just sit down and counsel with one another. Peeps, use your agency to act and not to be acted upon. Use your agency to assemble the active singles in your stake and decide when and where you're going to meet to counsel with one another regarding your own singles group in your stake. Now, please note that I said active singles intentionally. I'm not forgetting here about the less actives, but they're just best included when you have the foundation of a vibrant and consistently active singles group. Many singles leaders make the mistake of focusing first on the inactives, and it almost always falls apart because in order to retain the inactives, you need something to invite them into. And when you're just starting to form your group, you don't have that something established yet. So focus first on the active singles, get that foundation established, and then you can begin to add to that foundation and grow your group. So those are the first two steps. So third step, in addition to step one, using your agency to stop waiting for local leaders to give you permission before you live your life. And then two, use your agency to assemble the active singles together to counsel in forming your own singles group. Step three, you can use your agency to call upon the powers of heaven through fasting. Fasting is very effective when done as a group. You could even use it to help you prepare for counseling with one another so that when you do have that counsel with one another, you'll be more sensitive to the promptings of the Spirit and His guidance in how you should proceed. That said, the fasting I'm talking about here is a fast to implore the Lord to pour His Spirit upon your stake leaders and imbue them with a greater feeling of compassion and empathy in meeting the needs of the singles in your stake. We are not alone. The Lord is very much aware of each of our needs as individuals, as well as which of those needs are shared amongst us as singles. He yearns to help us, and fasting is one way we can implore Him to do more of what He already yearns to do. Now, we all know of times in our lives when fasting as a group has been effective. I'll give you an example that all of us are probably familiar with back in 2020 during the pandemic. I'm sure many of you remember President Nelson invited the whole church to hold a special fast. So members of the church everywhere around the world were holding a fast at the same time. And he promised 4 specific results if members of the church would fast with sincerity. Now, I actually wrote a blog post about 6 or 8 weeks or so after the fact that we had this fast, and I was looking for evidence. Like, President Nelson, the Lord's prophet, he made these promises. Do we have any evidence that they came true? And so I wrote this blog post that assembled all of these evidences, and I had a broadcast, an episode of the program that revolved around that blog post. Now, what evidence can I find respecting the 4 promises that the Lord's modern-day prophet had made with respect to the worldwide fast? As I recall, there were a couple of items that needed more time to evaluate, but the evidence that I was able to collect up to that point suggested very positive outcome. And for the other items that were promised, there was clear evidence that, boom, like it was there, right? So, you know, it was really refreshing to, look and see and evaluate the promises that the Lord's prophet had made, and to see that, yes, here is evidence that the Lord heard the cry of his people during their fast. So, that really just boosted my testimony that fasting as a group can have real power. Now, on that note, I want to announce here on Join the Journey Radio a very special effort that Join the Journey Radio will be leading in July. July's right around the corner. So for the Fast Sunday for that month, which is July 6th, 2025, I'm inviting LDS singles everywhere to join me in fasting for stake leaders everywhere, so that their hearts will be filled with more compassion and empathy towards the single adults under their stewardship, and that they will act with more compassion and empathy to meet the needs of single adults in their stake. Please, peeps, get active. Spread the word about this fast. Make it go viral, right? Send out your own messages through whatever channels of communication you have with other singles everywhere. Feel free to share this episode of Join the Journey Radio through your own social media networks so that people can understand more of what this is all about. Um, but yeah, let's get this going, right? The larger the group we can build in joining in this fast for singles everywhere, then the larger our cry will be to heaven to begin to alleviate the pain we singles feel from the lack of response many singles feel from their stake leaders. So please commit to join in this special fast yourself on July 6, 2025, and tell everyone you know so they can join as well. Keep in mind that this fast is not so that our stake leaders will act or, get their rear in gear or anything like that, right? As I mentioned at the start of the program today, my experience tells me that generally stake leaders are good men who want to do what is right. Our fast that I'm going to be leading here on Join the Journey Radio will be for the Lord to pour more compassion and empathy into the hearts of stake leaders so that they will feel more compelled to act. And I believe that these men are good enough that when the Lord fills their hearts with more compassion and empathy towards us singles, they're going to follow that inclination. They're going to act. Again, I have sat in more bishopric meetings, ward council meetings, stake presidency meetings, and stake high council meetings than I can count. I truly believe that, most of these men will follow the inclinations that an added measure of compassion and empathy will provide them. Now, this list of 3 items that I've given you is not exhaustive. I mean, there's so much more I could say about this topic. And some of those things you may actually discover on your own as you counsel with the other singles in your stake. But the 3 items that I've given you today, right? 1, don't wait for someone else to give you permission before you start acting. You start getting your own group together and getting it going. 2, counsel with one another. Get the active singles in your stake together and counsel with one another regarding how you should proceed with this group. And 3, fast. Use the power of fasting. Um, so, these 3 items, I believe, apply universally to all singles, regardless of where they live. So, this is my recommendation for you peeps. Choose to embrace your agency. Choose to act and not be acted upon. Choose to do what lies within your power to affect positive change instead of focusing on what you can't do. When you do this in partnership with the Lord, doing all you can do and then trusting in Him to do what you cannot, you can then stand still and watch the mighty hand of God work miracles in your behalf. And that will bring you more joy in your journey. Well, peeps, that's all I got for you today. Let's check out the chat here, and I'm not seeing any questions or comments, so I guess that means it was pretty clear what I had to say today. So, yeah, peeps, there's a lot of pain out there, and let's not wait before we start doing something to help resolve that pain in others. Let's take the pain that we've felt inside and let it motivate us to, you know, reach our hearts outward to other singles, that we have more compassion, we have more empathy, so that then when we have a fast, which again, spread the word, July 6th, 2025, we're going to be fasting everywhere for stake leaders to be more compassionate and empathetic toward the needs of the singles within their stake. Um, I believe it. I believe that this is the way forward, and we can take that pain that we've felt and just let it, you know, motivate us to turn to others and give to others and help alleviate their pain. And this fast is, I think, one way that we can actually do that. Is there something to do that can actually be productive and can act? I believe this can work. I can believe this can work, and that if we do this with honest heart, sincerity, you know, broken heart, true purpose, all that, good stuff, real intent, pure motives. I believe this. I believe that. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe this could work. I really do. And I've seen that power of fasting work in my life and in the lives of others. So let's come together. Let's stop focusing on what we can't do. Stop focusing on what lies outside of our sphere of influence, if you will, and let's start focusing on, well, what can we do? And the three things that I talked about today in the program are things that we can all do, and they'll lead us into a much better place, a place where we actually feel more joy. That even though some of our problems may not be solved right away, but we can still feel joy knowing that we're on the way there to the solution. We're on our way there to a much better state. So again, peeps, that's all I have for you today. Thanks to everyone for joining in. If you have something you'd like to say about what we discussed today, please leave a comment down below. If you have a topic or question that you want to see addressed about LDS singles life, we're happy to help. Please leave a comment down below. If there's something we can do to help you overcome the challenges of LDS singles life, yep, you got it. Leave a comment down below. So you can also go to the contact page at jointhejourneyradio.com/contact. Send us a message. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our content that you find helpful so that the algorithms can take that helpful content and push it out to help other Latter-day Saint singles. And until next time, this is your host reminding you there is joy to be had all along your journey. So take that joy and journey on.